we're always backed into a corner with these projects. And it's always the same line, and I don't know if it's some unwritten rule or a whisper campaign. I don't know what it is, but it seems that when these projects tend to come up, if we don't approve them, then something terrible is going to happen. Whether we have to repay things, and I just think that as a city, we really need to get ahead of making sure that we have enough time to deal with these projects. And I'm not saying that in this case that is the case, but the people who live in that area are saying that they haven't had the opportunity to be brought up to speed with these projects. And for us, for a city, again, it's our responsibility as a city, and it's the state responsibility to reach out to their residents. And I know I've said that, and I know it sounds like a broken record, but we're missing something here. The residents who live in the neighborhood are saying that the city did not reach out to them and explain these projects. And you know what happens when projects are not explained properly. There's a whole lot of misinformation. And we really need to change the way we're doing things to make sure that the public works when these projects occur, to make sure that each resident is aware, at least there is some type of system in place that allows residents to get notified via letter, email, whatever, a canvas, a knock on the door, anything to say, hey, listen, there's this project happening, and how do you feel about it? I don't think that if a person shows up here tonight, and I support him, because he shouldn't have to hear about a project via email from another constituent. And I think that's wrong, and I think it's something that we need to change as a city to make sure that when projects are being developed, the residents do not have time. I mean, maybe they watch this on television, and I want to thank the people who are videotaping this, because the quality seems a little bit better than past council meetings. People don't have time to attend council meetings, and they don't know all the nuances of government. So I think that we have an obligation to reach out to them and bring them along. So, Dave, when you're talking about all the good things about the project, and I do believe there are some good things in the project, that the negative information or the misinformation overshadows the good things in the project. I think that we have a responsibility as a city to work with the residents hand in hand, and I'm sure you agree. And I'm sure that Hal doesn't find this to be unreasonable. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's a good man, and I know that he will do his best to bring the residents together on this. And I think that we should do everything we could, be an amendment or anything that encourages residents who have stake in the game to come to the table and partner with the city, because they're the people that's most impacted by this. So I think that we should do our best before we leave here to address their concerns and put a process in place that will allow them to buy into the process, whether it's Hal opening up his conference room to these residents, and as you are an in-district councilman, and you said that you live 100 yards, I think you said, with the neighbors, so I'm sure that you want to make sure that all the proper information gets out. And as a council, we have an obligation to make sure that the residents who live in the neighborhood are actually working hand in hand with the city. But the responsibility is not on these homeowners to get the information. The responsibility to get the information out is on the public works and the rest of the state, and even your local council. That's the way I.
Mr. Kimmel and Mr. McCarthy.
Often, you can create problems that don't exist. And unfortunately, the non-existent problems become the lead story in the next day's meeting. First of all, I don't think we've been backed into a corner regarding this project, which goes back to the 90s. I have plenty of information. I've had plenty of information. We've all been provided information. There's been subcommittees of a committee. There's been previous discussions on the council. There's been informal discussions. There's been caucus discussions. There's been nonsense on Facebook. You name it. We have not been backed into a corner. And to say so implies that there's a problem that doesn't exist. And hopefully, when it's covered in the media tomorrow, it'll be done in an objective way. If you feel as if you've been backed into a corner, it means you haven't been reading all the backup or picking up the phone or emailing department heads and finding out what's what and asking questions. So I don't accept that backed into a corner. When we can get all of the answers we need, attend all the meetings we need, and get the answers we want. And if we don't like the answers, we vote accordingly. And we don't conjure up problems that don't exist. Another problem that I don't believe exists is I heard here the overwhelming number of residents, overwhelming number of Norwalk residents oppose this. Who took the poll? Who took the survey? We all know about 80% of the people who spoke tonight. A good many of them don't live in row 8. A good many of the people.
We all live in row 8. 40 years I lived there.
Excuse me. A number of the folks who spoke tonight do not live in row 8. And not most of you do. That's all. I said a good number, a good number.
Oh, my God.
A good number of the folks who spoke tonight do not live in row 8. Fine. The idea that the overwhelming majority of people in row 8 oppose this project, we don't have any evidence that that's true. As far as I know, there's been committee meetings, there's been community involvement, it's a taxing district. We have 3 commissioners here. Have they called meetings? Have they communicated with folks in the 6th district? Have they discussed this?
Yeah.
So what's the problem? That's the problem. What is the problem?
No one's listening.
Please allow Mr. Kimball to speak.
There's been discussion, all kinds of discussions in row 8, in City Hall, dealing with these issues. I don't think it's fair to say that the overwhelming majority of people in row 8 oppose this. There's no evidence of that. Nor do I believe we've been backed into a corner. We've been discussing this issue for a number of months now. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy and then Mr. Watson. Mr. Watson.
Honestly, I want to keep this meeting on. So, when I made the statement, it was more along the lines of the meeting that I attended. And the meeting I attended was, if we don't do this, then there will be some kind of consequence for the city, or a liability for the city. So that's where I come in. I try to do the best that I can as far as when projects come up, to do my due diligence. But as one of the only common councils or councils that I'm aware of that don't have any legislative staff, we do the best that we can with the information that we're presenting. And sometimes we really need to have some help with going through the material. This is only my 2nd term on the council, and I believe that there are other council members who are more experienced because they've been around for a while. But to get to the term boondoggle, I think that term was coined by you, Mr. Chairman. and you wrote a letter to me. And I think that's a good word to describe this project, and that was your first opinion of the project. Now you had an epiphany, you've changed, you've taken 180 on the position, and I understand it. And as council, as we get more and more information, we can do a 180. But the term boondoggle is yours, and you should own it. And I feel that we need to make sure that as a city, that we can all get to where you are, Mr. Kimmel, to go from the term boondoggle to now being an advocate for the project. And the way that we can do that is by getting all the information being presented to the public, to allow them to buy in. See, as a city, the city is very powerful. If you ask people who've gone through assessment process or zoning process or anything that has anything to do with the city has very deep pockets. And the city is very powerful in the fact that they have a lot of resources at their disposal. And sometimes residents could feel that the city is bulldozing the process and not giving them an opportunity. And we have to do better as a city because we're not above our residents. And another statement, whether a person who shows up to the podium, who actually lives in the neighborhood, doesn't give us a right to discount their opinion because they live in the city. And as far as I'm concerned, we're only one city. We're one city. We're not divided by neighborhood. We're divided. We are not divided. We have to make sure that any resident who feels a concern of any neighborhood has a right and almost an obligation to come out and speak out against something. So we shouldn't discount people or their opinion because they don't actually live in the neighborhood. We don't know. I don't know if a person who shows up is not a commuter and use a road. So let's not discourage people from coming and participating in government because that's the wrong message. And I know, Mr. Kimmel, that you are a gentleman, you are a scholar, and I often tell people that you're one of the smartest members of this council, and I really, really believe that. But we have an obligation with this project to make sure that everybody is buying in to the process, and I know that Hal wants that. And so I'm not going to kid myself here tonight and say that the project is probably not going to pass because from the comments here, or it may well pass. We just need to make sure that we're bringing the residents along with the process and make sure that we are holding their hand to make sure that they actually get the right information. And that's all we're trying to do. So,
Mr. McCarthy.
Since my colleague Mr. Watts brought it up, I point out to him that 2 years ago, when it was actually the project that was being reviewed, you stood up, advocated for it, and supported it. So if we're talking about 180s, it seems like you're doing one at this stage. A few of the things that were stated, we just counted. I mean, for the record, there were 5 or 6 people who were not from Ruane. But I think the point is that when people come out and are not pointing out legitimate concerns about the project, but reacting to speculation and outright mistruths and misspeakings, that there's something that should be concerning. And to your point about meetings and informing people, you're right. Nobody's going to disagree that people shouldn't be more informed. If you listened when I spoke, I went through the number of meetings, forums, and things that were held long before I was on the council, and you as well. And I personally went to 3 information sessions that were held when Mr. Conroy was chairman of the Public Works Committee, that were held in this building and that were attended by a variety of people. And coming out of that, I know that many of the suggestions, specifically my neighbor across the street, Jack Robson, was at the time the district administrator. He came in of his own accord to Public Works, number one, went to the meetings, and then subsequently provided a number of suggestions that have been passed on to the state and are, in some cases, in what's before you. There's no reason that we can't continue to listen to people, obviously, but I'm still looking to hear a concern that can be acted on. So at that point, I think it's time to vote on this.
Any other comments? And then we shall,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
motion to amend.
I believe so.
Mr. Guidance.
Approval of this line item is conditioned upon a committee being created for the purpose of studying the possibilities to modify the project in order to address the safety issues and concerns of the community, where it is reasonably feasible to implement any proposed modifications to address the safety issues and concerns of the community. The community shall make its reasonably best efforts to adopt said modifications. The committee shall include at least 5 residents of the 6th taxing district and 1 common council member from each caucus.
Motion to amend, so Mr. McCarthy.
I'll just speak to it. I'm going to vote against it with infinite respect, and my intention would be largely to live up to it. And as many people that want to come out can come out, and we can discuss any reasonable change, as I just said. But the language, when you say at least 5 people, all we need to do is keep 5 people away, and we'd never be able to actually live up to your, your proposed amendment. So I couldn't possibly support it in that, just in reaching out to 10 people who are reasonable, no one wanted anything to do with actually coming in and sitting down. So I'm open to the spirit, but not willing to support it in the letter. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Bonaparte.
Very briefly, I think everybody here is concerned about safety in the spirit of the, as Mr. McCarthy said, in the spirit of the amendment. But at this time, more studies and more delays, it's just going to go on, and I think it's just time to vote on the project or not. Thank you.
Mr. Hempstead.
I wanted to get the opportunity for Mr. That was worked out. Not up to the end, it was worked out in the caucus. I thought the language I proposed gave an opportunity to have somewhat of a voice continue the goodwill as we move down the process. That was put as part of the motion that's on the floor tonight. I think that gets a little, with all due respect, kind of overly complicates some things and puts some omens out there that are going to be hard for everybody to live up to. They put more roadblocks in the end versus dialogue. No matter what happens with this tonight, this moves forward, even if it's the format it is. I think I've heard enough voices here tonight. We're not from the public, but you have to trust this is a 8-7 group that I think there's additional concerns that will be listened to and trying to make work. I know about that. I'm for the sidewalk, moving out sidewalks further down and making it more safe for some people as far as we can, as long as they don't interfere with people's property rights. I'm all for it, and I'm going to support anything that comes up with that. So I'm with my colleagues at this stage again. I think they're overly complicated. Some things I'm simply trying to accomplish, but I do appreciate it.
Mr. Watts? I'm sorry, Mr. Lynn.
No, I'm done.
Mr. Watts.
Outside of Mr. Kites' amendment, how are you